Good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime series with me, Kevin Britz, proudly powered by leadershipbydesign.co, where we aim to add value to people's lives. You can listen to us live every Wednesday and Thursday at lunchtime on ebizradio.com and all your major podcast channels today. If you're seeing this or listening to this, I want to challenge you to add value to someone's lives today. We certainly need more people in the world to add value to others and be kinder to one another. But with that in mind, I want to introduce you to a founder and consultant who works in business and with business leaders, at least, to organize their people for infinite growth. The founder and consultant of Scalability. Please welcome Melanie Keartland. Melanie, how are you doing?
Very well, Kevin. Very
Was that
nice to be here.
Founder and consultant, right?
That's absolutely fine. No one's really going to be making notes.
So, Melanie, thank you for taking some time to chat to me. I'm so glad that when we first met, some of the things you were mentioning I was really interested in, and I knew that you had a different take on things, and that's what you're here to talk to us about today. But before we jump into that conversation, please give us some idea of who you are, and you started this business, and tell us why and what it's all about.
Oh, okay. So I used to work in rock and roll. I was a lighting tech and designer, and I used to travel all over the world and all over the country, climbing ladders and playing with lights. And then I went and worked in a corporate. And suddenly I was surrounded by people who were miserable. And, when you work in rock and roll and theater, you work, 72 hours a day. You wake up before you go to sleep. The work is hard and everyone just loves it. So for me, it was quite astonishing that there were people who were in jobs that they had, they'd applied for and they were miserable. So I started digging into how the hell could that happen? I mean, why would people be so miserable at work? So I started doing some research, and that's where scalability comes from.
Fantastic. And from your research, what were you finding, and what were you sort of understanding from why you needed to do this?
Well, so there's no such thing as a bad person. Well, there are some bad people. There are. But in the main, there are no bad people. People do what they do because they don't know what else to do. Yeah. But a lot of the dysfunction in organizations and in human collectives the dysfunction is systemic. So the system it evolves. It's not designed. Our human systems are not designed. They've evolved, and they've evolved for whatever reason, but a lot of them are now out of date.
Yeah.
So the dysfunction is systemic. So I work with the system rather than the individuals to tackle the issues and to reorganize so that everybody can flourish.
Amazing. And I mean, so that's what we're talking about today, right? Is what that is, and sort of, do you want to preface what we're going to unpack today?
Okay, so I mean, as I say, dysfunction tends to be systemic. So because we've grown up in systems, for example, school.
Yeah.
We all went to a school where there's one person who stands in front, who is in charge, who knows everything, and you daren't challenge. I mean, obviously things have changed now, but when you and I grew up in the dark ages, it was one person in front, knew everything, and you conformed or you got into trouble. So you had a choice. You could be a goody-goody, or you could be a rebel, or you could be invisible. The people in the middle were all invisible. So it becomes invisible to us that the system is shifting the way we behave. So not only is the problem invisible, so are the solutions. So by doing the research, understanding how people work and how people work as a collective, I started understanding what it was that was making people miserable. It was things like micromanagement, lack of autonomy, and the list goes on and on and on. You can ask anybody working in a corporate, they can give you 500 things. But where do those things come from? They are systemic.
Yeah.
How do you tackle it? You tackle the system. And obviously, I have to work with all the humans. I have to work with leadership. But really, it's about how we connect and how we mesh. That's where the magic is.
Fantastic. And I mean, we work, one of the intros to your business is we work with business leaders to organize their people for infinite growth. So tell us more about what you mean by infinite growth.
Okay, with pleasure. So anybody who has been in a fast growing business or wanting to scale their business and been through the literature, what we have been doing is we build businesses for a particular size. Any consultant will tell you it operates in a particular way. Your business will work in a particular way up until 20 people. Then gears have to shift, and then it's kind of stable until you hit about 80 to 100. Then you've got to reconfigure your whole business, and so it goes. There are thresholds. I mean, there are plenty of diagrams. But the truth is that, okay, let me revert a little bit. A business, if you shift your perspective and see a business not as a machine where things have to change for the machine to get bigger, if you think of a business as organic, as an organism, which essentially it is, because it is people then run by organic organisms, they carbon run businesses are, then you start looking at it from a different direction, and you look at it to see how it will best grow to serve its market. Have you ever encountered the idea of biomimicry?
No.
So biomimicry, there are a whole lot of scientists who pose the question, when you're facing a problem, how does nature solve it? How does nature solve for spring? Well, let me put it a different way. How does nature project manage spring?
Yes.
Okay. They've come up with amazing stuff. So there's a very slow-moving shark, never got any bacteria on its skin. And they were fascinated. Is it a chemical? What is it? Turns out it was the architecture of the skin. So they're now making wallpaper with that architecture for hospitals. How cool is that? So when you're growing your business, how does nature grow? How does a tree grow?
Yeah.
Okay. The leaf formation for a tree this big is the same for a tree that big. It's there's a word for it that obviously escapes me because we're recording and I get anxious. But if you start looking at how nature grows to manage scale, how does nature scale? How does a herd form? You then start understanding that a building and a business are very different things. If you want a 4-story building, the foundation needs to be very different from a 1-story building. But if you want a 3,000 hectare forest, you don't need different foundations. It's more of a replication. Yeah. So that's one of the clues. But, we're working with organograms, and, we use the organogram as a way of describing our business. Those were invented in 1855. They work for factories. They work for somewhere where you are replicating exactly the same product over and over again. We don't need that anymore. It's 2023. We need people to show up as whole people. We need their ingenuity. We need their insight. We need their creativity. We need their ownership. So that factory configuration ain't working no more.
And I think that's part of the evolution of what leadership looks like, and I think the more we actually start having this conversation, the more people are starting to realize that, like you say, the policies and procedures and the organogram that you know that we still tend to work with. A lot of these systems and strategies are completely outdated, and they just don't function, and they don't work, you know, and sometimes they do, but essentially the evolution of where we are at this point, we really have to consider, you know, what is the different approach here, and what are we actually doing, and how do we do what we're doing. And because essentially there has to be an evolution of leadership, there has to be an evolution of how we do business. There already is, and you know, we can see that. But I mean, one of the questions that we have here is the importance of the focusing on teams. And you know, again, you know, you speak about having holistic people, and people who are you know, who are present and really, you know, there in the environment, not just doing a job, but actually people who are part of their career and working on themselves and working on their career and in a business context. And we know that high performing teams are great, and you know, but how do we actually get to that? So teams in itself is a huge focus for I'm assuming for infinite growth to exist, right? So tell us why is it important for the focus on teams?
Okay, so a high-functioning individual can be up to 10 times more effective than a sort of ineffective human, but high-functioning teams can be up to 200 times more effective. Just look at the box.
Yeah.
Okay, it's teams. It's working together, playing to strengths. So my basic unit of operating is a team, but a high functioning team is something very, very specific. So, you know, I will sit with business owners and I'll say to them, do you have teams in your business? And they'll go, sure, we've got an accounting team and a production team and a, you know, what team and a marketing team. And those single function teams are fraught with difficulty. They essentially, if you work in those kind of strata, you've basically built yourself a factory. So you're never going to get any increase in productivity, speed, ingenuity, creativity, any of the lovely stuff that we're looking for in our businesses these days. What you really are looking for are cross-functional teams. And these are the basic units for the infinite growth. I said it's a sort of a replicated kind of concept, makes people incredibly nervous when I start talking about this. But if you've got a single function team, it's like having a whole team of fly halves. How the hell, you know, how the hell are we going to win a rugby game if we only have fly halves? We're never going to. Okay. Yeah. So you've got to start thinking about your teams in a very, very different way. You had a question?
No. Carry on.
Oh, okay. So what you're wanting to look at all the capabilities you need to produce a unit of work that is finished either for an internal or external customer. And then you build those cross-functional teams. And what happens in those cross-functional teams is that you actually start locking into the benefits of diversity. We all go diversity, diversity, diversity. None of us know how to reap the benefits of diversity. We know it's a good thing, and we know that it increases productivity and creativity and innovation, et cetera, et cetera. We don't know how to reap it. So these cross-functional teams are where you find it. When you have a single function team, what you have is potato, 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 potato. And people either find themselves settling as just good enough because it becomes hierarchical. When everybody's doing the same thing, you're constantly comparing yourself to the person next to you, and you're either better or worse. So either you have your superstar, and then everybody is just miserable. Or else, when you have potato, 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 you have people who are desperately trying to shine. And we've all seen them, people who kind of oversell or terribly pushy or constantly wanting to do something in a different way. It's because they just want to be seen.
Yeah.
When you go cross-functional, you get rid of all of those tensions. You get rid of the status issues. You get rid of, and you can build on, and basically it's related to neurotransmitters, things like serotonin. So if you've got a whole lot of people and you are not the alpha, what happens is that you end up with less serotonin. So basically what you've got is people with low-level depression in your business. And then you go, why aren't they performing? It's like, so the understanding neurotransmitters is really, it's crucial.
Yeah, and essentially, from I'm glad that you even mentioned that, is because we often look at what does motivation look like, and very it's one of the areas that I look at specifically, and from a human needs perspective, if you don't understand what humans need, and they don't get significance, or they don't get certainty, or they don't get contribution or growth in that environment, and it's part of that neurotransmitters kind of indicator, because if I know I'm being significant and I feel significant, then my serotonin's really going to kick into gear and kind of go, okay, cool, I feel good about this. I know what I'm doing. I feel like I'm contributing in some way. I feel significant. My need is being fulfilled. And essentially, just from a human needs perspective, essentially, people constantly look at how do we motivate teams, and my immediate first go-to is, well, do you understand what your team needs as humans? And I think we're not, like you say, we're not living in the dark ages. We're working with humans, right? If we don't know how to motivate them, and we don't understand where motivation intrinsically comes from, we're going to struggle. We're going to struggle how to tap into what motivation for them looks like. So I love that you bring that in. But I mean, how do we guide our people from productivity, ownership, and all those other good things?
Right. So you need to. So essentially, what you're looking for is some sort of behavior change, right?
Yeah.
So you've got to understand what we have. We have a lot of talk fests. You'll have people coming in and running a workshop and talking, and then there'll be a little breakaway session. Fantastic. But everybody will sit down at their desk on Monday and do what they've always done.
Yeah.
So those kind of interventions, they're nice, but they're not effective at scale. What you've really got to do is you've got to shift process. So we use Agile a lot, very specifically Scrum, in order to actually change process. And I mean, we've used it from the United Nations Secretariat to painters and carpenters to shift things like productivity and ownership.
Yeah.
The other thing you've got to keep in mind is that ownership is not about having shares in the business. When you talk about ownership of work, it doesn't translate into people taking ownership of their work. Ownership, that kind of ownership, comes from the ability to make decisions to influence outcomes. So it's all very well to tell me I've got a X% stake in the business, but if I can't influence decisions to change the outcome, you may as well, it doesn't mean anything to me. It certainly doesn't translate into actual action on the ground, me doing stuff. Yeah. So there's a brilliant process called the advice process. And what the advice process says is that anybody in the organization can make a decision if they take advice. They have to take advice from everybody who's going to be impacted by the decision, and they've got to take advice from experts. So, for example, your receptionist decides that we need a new photocopier. The normal scheme of things, she would have to tell, or he would have to tell their supervisor, who would then go and have a word with procurement or finance, who then would do some research, and the decision would go. And I mean, CEOs get swamped with these kind of decisions on a daily basis, and they get asked to make decisions with no background. They've then got to do a whole forensic activity to try and figure out why a new photocopier is necessary. And then it circles back, and eventually the receptionist ends up with a photocopier that really doesn't fulfill the needs of the people who need it. So you say, cut all that out. You say, okay, receptionist, you may make the decision. In fact, you have to make the decision. You've identified the problem, but you have to consult everybody who's going to be impacted. So that includes all the people using the photocopier. It includes the finance people. You then need to talk to experts. So it could be, you know, your photocopier salespeople, your procurement people, and then you actually have to use that and make the decision.
Yeah.
So you center decisions right where they need to be made. So you shorten that long string, but you also take cognitive load away from the leadership who are not equipped to make the decision. Obviously, they're hell of smart people, but why should they go and find out what sort of photocopier is needed at the front desk? The people at the front desk must tell us what photocopier is needed there. So it's an awesome process, and it gets used all over the world, and it also teaches people, it takes away the they bought a photocopier, that just doesn't work. No, I made the decision, and now I know for next time I've got to box a little cleverer because I didn't understand that. I didn't understand that. So it's an incredibly empowering learning curve for the people who use it.
And don't you think that's also probably one of the biggest downfalls of a high performing team is the ability to be responsible?
Exactly.
And I think that the point of advice that I'm hearing, you know, is can I take advice and use this and go and seek advice and make it take responsibility, have the ability to respond to solve the problem.
But owning the decision is where it really lands. Owning that decision. I mean, it comes back to, you know, the whole autonomy, mastery, purpose, all of that. Autonomy.
Yeah.
How do you give people autonomy without instigating chaos? There are loads of practices that are just awesome. There's a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah, and I think that's that's part and parcel of, you know, what we need in the world is we need more people to be empowered to be able to make decisions. Right?
Yeah, it's very helpful. Yeah.
So, I mean, to conclude today, you know, like this has been a quick session. I'm like, it's been faster than I realized. But so you're definitely going to have to come back and speak more about how we do this scalability thing, because I think it's a fantastic. I think you're, you know, speaking around systems and just bringing some insights onto this is fascinating. But I mean, if we had to give any advice to aspiring business leaders out there, what, you know, if you had maybe three to five kind of areas for them to start, what would they need to be doing?
Okay. People need to be seen, heard, and valued. If you want stuff from people, they must be seen, heard, and valued. That's kind of 101. But
Yes.
the other thing is, because the world is so different, we've got infinite knowledge sharing, there's AI, business cycles are becoming tighter and tighter. You can't just do what everybody else does. You know, you've got to be kind of less Jack Welch and more Elon Musk. You need to actually operate. You need to take the responsibility of operating from first principles to an extent. And I mean, that's the scientific method. So you've got to be clear about what you want to achieve and kind of what's in your way. Formulate a hypothesis. I think it's this. Devise experiments. We are going to do this. You know, it's like, you know, people in marketing do A/B testing. Do people in HR do A/B testing? I think they should. I think they should figure out what works and what doesn't work, as opposed to saying, oh, I read it somewhere. Sure, it must be right. So you devise your experiment, you test your hypothesis, refine, learn, repeat. And in that way, you can build an organism that serves what you want to achieve with your business.
And that also means that systems might change from month to month, because you're aware of what's working, not working, right?
Yeah.
And not
So
get
an organism is responsive.
yeah.
It's responsive to client needs. It empowers everybody to go, that's not working. Why didn't it work? There's Adam said his black box principle. We're very bad at reviewing as business people in this day and age. We really are not good at. We always say, "Oh, we've got to review the project." Do we? Hands up. Oh, about 3. So that's where the Scrum process is so useful, because that revise, review, retrospective is hard baked.
And also, I think people also hold, a colleague refers to this as the holy cows of the business, right? We have this holy cow and we kind of go, okay, cool. Like it's the one thing that's working. Like, let's not, if it's working, let's not speak about it. But, then you look at the iPhone, for example, like they didn't stop at iPhone 8 and go, well, we've made it. We've done it. We've achieved what we needed to achieve. It's still being refined and updated and doing things now that it never could do. But they looked at something that was really fantastic and really working well and just made it better. So, it's that complete constant organism evolving into, how do we get this organism to the next level and to the next degree? And what does it mean? And how do instead of holding on to the holy cow of like, this is the one thing that works for us. And I think I probably will be challenged in a big way, but that is a paradigm shift for a lot of organizations, right?
Correct. And this is why I start off by saying, toss the organogram, get rid of it. Stop thinking that there is one way that business works.
Yeah.
Because, we've gone all the way to understanding, one of one customer.
Yeah.
But then we expect the same structure to serve all these different, we're not looking at the structure.
Exactly. Yeah. So, Millie, this is so fascinating. I love how your brain thinks. we need to have more of these conversations. But like, if we want to get hold of scalability or get hold of you, like, what is the best place for us to do that?
So LinkedIn, we're all over LinkedIn. There's a scalability page. Obviously, I am a person on LinkedIn. You can just Google me, Melanie. Keartland. Scalability is SCALE with a hyphen ability.
Yeah.
So LinkedIn's good. We also at scalability.com, our website. You can find us there. And we are on Instagram, but we're not that good at Instagram. We're in a slightly different generation, and I keep employing young people to fix the Instagram, but because I don't know how to do it, it doesn't happen. So I'm happy. I would like to take advice.
Yes.
On how to fix the Instagram, please. If anybody wants to give me
advice, get in touch with Melanie. She needs some Insta upgrading there. Advice. Here we go. Melanie Keartland, thank you so much. Founder and consultant of Scalability. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for being part of the Lunchtime series. That was fantastic. And please come back.
Thank you. That was awesome. Very good to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Melanie. Have a good one. I'll chat to you soon. Cheers. Bye.